Good morning, everybody. Welcome to ProTalk Technology Edition. Every episode, we're going to be bringing you conversations straight from the field, lessons, patterns, observations from working with insurance agencies every single day.
Yeah, and between our teams, we spend a lot of time with CIOs, COOs, CDOs, CTOs, operation leaders, agency principals, tech teams, basically everybody in the tech space or that's touching tech across the industry. And we hear those conversations happening that are actually happening behind closed doors. The challenges, the wins, the heartaches, honestly, some of the mistakes as well.
Yeah, and it's really about sharing what we're seeing across the industry because we know agency leaders love learning from other agencies. And sometimes knowing that someone else has already solved a problem can really save a lot of frustration.
Yeah, frustration is kind of the key word right now out there. So today we thought we'd try something different. Um, the five biggest surprises agencies tell us after they start working with us, or put another way, five things we wish more agency leaders knew.
Yeah. And we'll start with your technology probably isn't your biggest technology problem. I think that's always a funny one because people immediately assume they need a new AMS or another platform to manage, some of the things that are happening in their organization. But Kevin and I have seen a lot of times that isn't true.
Yeah, honestly, most of the time, they think that they have a great tech platform. They don't. We walk into agencies and they have really good technology. The technology isn't the issue. So like they may have Epic or Applied Epic, Salesforce, Verta4 systems, Power BI. They've got great tools that they can use. The challenge really isn't the software. It's everything in between, how they're connecting the dots between everything and how they're utilizing that tech stack. Like they have great software, but they're not using all the features within that software or their tech platform. And so a lot of times, some of the simplest solutions are us just coming in and helping them efficiently use what they're trying or what they are already purchased. It's not you don't need something new. You have great tech sitting in your stack right now. You're just not using it to the fullest. And so that's one of the most consistent observations that I see when talking with customers.
And what would you say some of the biggest problems are, Kevin? Like, when we're thinking about, and or talking to our customers and looking at their, technology stack, their enterprise architecture, talking to them about their roadmap, what are some of the things that you hear from other organizations that are some of their biggest problems with those particular tools and what they have currently today and why they start looking?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, this is not going to be a shocker for anybody. The most consistent thing is the inability to use the data that they're putting into it, or not seeing the data they need when they try and take it out. And so, sometimes it's as simple as, hey, let's take a look at your policy downloads and what you're doing in that space. Are you utilizing and consuming everything that a carrier will send you to help make the data in your tech better? It could be workflows and just inconsistency in those workflows. And, an account manager in the commercial lines department handles something different than an account manager in the personal lines department, or even in the same department, on the West Coast versus the East Coast or the Southeast or the Northwest or whatever, how they break it up. There's just real inconsistencies in kind of the expectations of what they want the account managers or however they phrase it within their agency from a title, but just not having the consistency of data inputs. So from an analysis standpoint, we typically try and start there and work back from like what's your pain, and then let's boil it down to the lowest common denominator we possibly can. And it's typically not their tech stack. It's how they're using their tech stack.
Yeah. And that brings me to our next point, right? I think every agency thinks they're unique, right? And don't get me wrong, they can be, from the products they sell to how they service. There is some uniqueness, and that's what makes them competitive in their space, right? And why customers are drawn to them and why people buy their insurance from them. But when we start drawing workflows, looking at their systems, how they're utilizing their systems, some of that uniqueness, I would say, kind of starts falling by the wayside. Would you agree with that, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, like not to take away anybody's special sauce. Like every agency has their own unique abilities, but at the end of the day, we're still dealing with insurance. Like insurance is the common denominator there. And so, when you start working through, kind of drawing out workflows or whiteboarding solutions and things, you see, you know, a change, an endorsement change request is an endorsement change request, regardless of which agency you're sitting in. So let's nail that process, make sure we're efficiently doing that. And what are the outputs and inputs through that process? And let's map those out and make sure that you're capturing everything you want. All of this is what we're setting up for. I'm not stealing the thunder from one of the later items, but like you got to have the data consistency if you want to utilize some other tools later down the road. So a lot of agencies skip that step and they go to the shiny new toy in the room, and they want to utilize that, but they don't have consistent data inputs. And so while every agency is unique in how they operate, what makes them them, the data needs to remain not unique and be very consistent in order to maximize the return on everything that you're doing with these, systems that you're paying top dollar for. These are not cheap systems that a lot of these agencies are using, and we want to help make sure that you're getting the most for the spend.
And I guess, when we're talking about that and you're talking about data, we're going to hit on this a lot in this conversation. I think it really goes into the next thing we're hearing out there in the industry, right? AI shouldn't or isn't the first conversation we should be having. I think it always surprises people when we, kind of combat, like, the question isn't where we can use AI. The better question in my mind is, like, is your agency actually ready? And how we in tech services, can kind of assess and understand that. But those, I feel like that's the bigger question. Would you agree with that, Kevin?
I totally agree, and I go back to my like writing in an account manager's desk and sending out quotes, but it's kind of like AI is kind of like I equate it to the full coverage word. Like, am I getting full coverage? Well, okay, well, full coverage can mean a lot of things, and AI can mean a lot of things too. And so when people want to talk about AI, for me, it's not so much like, can you use it? Absolutely, you can use it, but are you ready to use it? I say this over and over again, and people have heard me speak. No, this is just part of my dialect at this point. AI magnifies the good, and AI magnifies the bad. And if you do not have good data to help AI move forward, then you're really magnifying bad habits or bad data hygiene. And you're not going to be able to get the most out of the AI, because if you don't have consistency across that, AI will break and not give you consistent results. And so if you're spending on AI on top of what you have with your AMS and your CRM and everything else, then you're magnifying and also not really getting the ROI that you're looking for. At the end of the day, bad data becomes faster that way. And that is probably the most misunderstood thing that I see with agencies out there right now, because AI is such a big buzzword. What are you seeing in your conversations, Crystal, when it comes to, the ever ominous AI topic?
I have so many opinions about AI that I probably shouldn't bring up in this podcast. But no, I agree. I think, a lot of agencies, the people that, we're framing this podcast for are sitting at the top. Of course. I mean, everybody wants efficiency. Everybody wants, things to cost less for them to get a return, all of those things. But, you couldn't have said it better. It's really about the foundation. Is the foundation ready to utilize an AI structure? And I think it's also looking at, the things that you're doing in the organization, again, that really could use AI and you will get your best bang for your buck, right? I think that's the other thing. Like a lot of agencies are just rushing in, they're buying a tool, like we were talking about
Absolutely.
earlier, getting
Yeah,
technology, and
absolutely.
then they're tacking it onto something that's already not in great shape for whatever reasons. Tons of acquisitions that haven't been prepared well, and they just crammed in the data, not like you said earlier, not appropriately using policy download. There can be a whole host of things that cause the mechanism not to work as well as they would like it to.
Well, I think another kind of version of that too is not necessarily like AI is great in what's being sold to the CIOs and the CTOs, and like it wants to solve for things that are core and important to them. But the real efficiencies come from listening to the people that are working the desk
Yeah.
and how AI can improve the tasks that they do on a daily basis and not get sold by the, fancy buzzwords that don't necessarily deliver the results. They don't improve the operations. Maybe it gives you a report that you needed, but it's not doing anything for the people that are writing the desks and trying to accomplish those tasks and do more with less, right? So AI should be supplementing your workforce, not forcing you to add more staff, right? It should be freeing up your staff to do the more important things. And, one of the most common things that I see is not listening to the people that are doing those things. And so, at the top of the food chain, you're making great decisions for what you think is going to help, but actually it's not serving the greater good. It's not solving for the problems that start at the desk.
Yeah. And that leads us to the next. You just set us up perfectly for the next
Hey, I
topic.
didn't even mean
Good
to.
job,
So
Kevin.
great.
Good job. So, and I agree with this wholeheartedly. I don't know how people will think about making, in sales will think about me making this bold statement, but the agencies making the biggest progress aren't necessarily spending the most money.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess I frame that more in a technology lens, right? They're not going out there necessarily and just buying new technology to fix an operational problem, right? They're sitting down, they're making smaller, smarter decisions, whether that be integration between systems, whether that be better configuration, again, utilizing policy download. We keep hammering on that, getting quicker, faster carrier access management, all of the things, having a really good application management team, all of those things. And they're solving those one at a time rather than trying to, I always hesitate to use this analogy, but, don't eat you eat the elephant one bite at a time. Not that I ever suggest that, but, it's just one little thing at a time and looking at that. And when you make those smaller operational shifts, it seems to have a bigger impact. And honestly, it's easier to budget for, it's easier to understand. Change management is easier. There's so many things. So
Yeah.
I know you talk to agencies all day, every day. So I would love your hot take on this too, Kevin.
Yeah, no, exactly. The where I see success is in smaller bites. And one integration, one workflow, one reporting issue. Let's build momentum in solving for things. AI is not going to just, twinkle twinkle snap your fingers solve your agency's issues overnight. You need to start stacking these little small victories so you have, a major victory, or you see the progress. The other thing is I'm gonna flip back to kind of pairing off of my last topic, but um, you know what's being sold at that C-suite level, um, may be great and it's great, but when it get down to the desk level, it's not being adopted. So then you're not getting the usage that you thought you would get out of it. So these smaller little pieces, as you start tackling them, also show your staff that it is improving their day-to-day life. And once you get their buy-in on it, then you're off to the races and that momentum takes off because they've bought into the solutions that you're trying to present rather than, oh, this is just solving for, my CEO's reporting issue versus it can be both. This actually improved the process that I'm using to issue this piece of business, and I'm getting the data in the system, which solves the reporting problem for the CEO. So it can be both sides of the coin, and you need to find those wins along the way in order for your agency to kind of not only use it or not only see the success from it, but actually use it. And so for me, it's trying to find, like when I'm talking to agencies and we're uncovering these things, it's finding not necessarily where you're going to get the biggest ROI off the bat, but a combination of ROI as well as efficiency improvements for the people that are doing the work every day. And when you compare those together, then you really start to build the momentum and you stack a few of those together. And now you're like, the team is seeing like, wow, what used to take me an hour may only take me 40 minutes now. Okay, great. And then you stack another one on it and it moves from 40 minutes to 35 minutes. And so, you got to build those, like take the small victories in this, guys. Like don't go, swing for the home run if you want, but some singles here are going to get you the win.
Yeah. Um, I would love you to kind of also talk about this is so I love this conversation because I think both you and I have both sat in the chair, so we get it, and we get when we're like, here's this new thing that we're going to ask you to use. And back in our day, I hate to say it that way, but back in our day,
Yeah.
like it was as simple as e-fax. Like people will laugh on the phone. If we have some millennials, they might not know what I'm talking about, but us Gen Xers and older will know, right? Um, but I will tell you, there were still people getting up and using the fax machine because they were like, it's not going to work, right? Or, those types of things.
This
But
is the way we've always done it, right?
yeah,
So
this is
it's
the
just
way we've
this
always done it.
habit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so when we think about that, but eventually, when you do get those operational efficiencies, when people start seeing the benefit, it can be a huge operational shift. We've watched many things come and go in our tenure in this space, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to technology, and really, it kind of brings me to my last point. I was just kind of pontificating there for a minute, but um, the technology transformation isn't actually about the technology, right? Like it's a whole host of things. But I would love to hear really quick. I was going to ask you this question. I just realized I kind of like went over. But what are some of the things that you're actually seeing and ways that you have actually helped with transformation? And then we'll kind of get back into the fact that it isn't always about the technology that's transforming and the things that are actually helping. But what are some of the things that you're seeing and talking to customers about specifically, without getting too salesy, Kevin, that are helping these organizations and why?
Yeah. I mean, every time I talk with an agency, we're talking data. And so, how do we make it easier for, like less spreadsheets for people, less manual reconciliations, How do you get the team to have more time with clients versus more time with their computer? And so, when, how do we remove the friction in this process? And so that's really where I try and dial in. And a lot of times it really comes down to, are we getting all of the data we can without having to hand hammer this into the system? So I will always come back to, let's start with the base analysis of your systems. Are they talking together? Are you having to rekey information? Is there something like, well, almost all of it moves over to my CR or from my CRM to my AMS or vice versa, right? If you're using two different systems, maybe I have to put it in the policy, but now I also have to put it in the cert. Well, why isn't the policy information flowing into the cert for you. Let's take a look at some of that. Oh, well, you know what? You actually put it in the wrong area of the system. So we kind of go back to some basics and try and solve for that kind of baseline. Are you using your system the way it was intended? And I've worked at an AMS system previously, and I was on the product team there. And we would sit in a room and we would look at this and think, this is the best workflow. This is the best possible way to use this. And then when you put it out in the real world, agents will break whatever you've designed to be working. And so, or the way you've designed it to work. And so they're going to use it a different way. And sometimes when you use it a different way, it doesn't give you the result you're looking for at the end of the day. So we kind of got to get back into those workflows analysis. How's the data flowing through the system? And are your systems connected to each other? Like the application to application transfer of data is one of the most misused things out there.
Yeah.
If it's not set up the right way, like is your EB system talking to your AMS? Is your AMS talking? Is your subledger in your AMS talking to your general ledger and your accounting system? Like basic kind of connectivities that just seem to be broken. So data and connection are where I'll come down to, and those are the most impactful areas that you can make. Quickly. You can make improvements in these areas quickly with a little bit of use. And sometimes it's us just, I will get a little salesy here for a second. So pardon me, everybody, but welcome to our lives. Sometimes it's simple as like transitioning the policy download management to us. And we go through your Ivan's account. We make sure you're looking at every carrier that's in your kind of inventory. Are you consuming everything from those? When you set it up 3 years ago, all they downloaded was personal lines, and now they download personal lines and commercial, or they only downloaded BOP, and now they download GL and work. So as you get through this, it's making sure you're maximizing all of the data flows that you can get, and then once it's in your AMS, is it being pushed to where you need it to? And so those are the conversations that I have consistently. And it, if you're stuck in that position, just know you're not alone. It is a common thread across multiple agencies. And if you're getting it right, it's more an exception than the rule. And so if you're in that bucket, congratulations. If you're not in that bucket, let us take a look. We're going to help you get there. Nothing like what we're doing is just insurance. It's just a little bit of tech. Like we can solve these problems for you, and we welcome the opportunity as well.
Yeah. And I think, and I'm going to try not to make it sound, again, I feel like I've repeated myself a couple times here, but not try to make it sound salesy as well. But one of the things that we definitely pride ourselves here at Resource Pro is really being the subject matter experts. We understand insurance deeply. We understand these problems deeply. We understand, great talent is great talent. We understand the
Yes.
importance of data. We understand the importance of your day-to-day operations leading to better revenue, better client experiences. We get all of that. And and it's really about, you use this statement and I'm totally going to steal it from you right now,
It's
but
okay.
less swivel chair work, right? So
Yeah.
like you're talking about
Oh, I'm over
but
here. I'm over
yeah,
here. I'm
yeah,
over here.
yeah.
I'm
It's
over here.
about us
Yeah.
helping, really giving people better days at work. Because who wants to work harder and not smarter, right? That sort of thing. And so, uh, you know, we've created about a year ago created this tech services division to really help our customers, the industry, really be supported in all things insurance, right? We're
Yeah.
really good at this. We understand it. Um,
So
so yeah, go ahead, Kevin. Sorry.
if there's one thing that you would want a listener today to leave with,
Yeah.
what would that be?
Um, I think it would be really, don't start by asking what technology should we buy. We see that all the time, and then we get brought into those conversations, right? Like, what technology, should we buy X? Should we buy X? And it's not that you shouldn't. There's some great vendors out there doing some incredible
Yeah.
stuff, but it's where does our team lose the most time every single day? And to your point, where are we not getting the data and insights into our organization that would actually help us improve, understand our client better, our book of business, you know, and we'll have, more sessions on this topic, but where just a minor tweak or something that we're doing can help us from a revenue perspective, like all of those things.
Yeah.
So I start by asking those questions. I get pretty bold. I think both of us do, Kevin. We just dive right in and just ask the hard questions the minute we're brought into a conversation and somebody wants to talk to us.
Yeah.
But that's definitely where I like to start is where does the team lose the most time every single day, and what hurts, and tell me about it.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. When you kind of hone in on where you're losing time, or where they feel like maybe they're spending, not necessarily losing time, but maybe where they feel like they're spending too much time. That's usually where the biggest opportunity is kind of hiding, or that's where it sits, and that's where we need to kind of focus in on. So I know we've said a lot today, everybody. Hopefully you've suffered through this with us and have made it to the end. But thank you, Crystal. Thanks for joining us. And this is our inaugural first episode of Pro Talk, and we hope you'll be back for the next one, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.